Hello and welcome. It's great to see so many of you here. I think it's a premiere that we have a talk in the Vitra House in this setting of the Art Basel Design Miami Week. For those of you who prefer to sit on a chair, we are currently bringing a few additional chairs. So if you, for some health reasons, for example, you would prefer to have a good chair, there's a few over there. Well, I think I already made a short introduction into the evening downstairs, but I think some of you already had been upstairs when I said a few words. This talk is part of a collaboration that we are having with Audi. We hosted previous talks in 2 German cities, and now we wanted to take the occasion of this week to host another talk. And our guests here are Sabine Marcelis, designer, and Daniela Knapp from Audi Design. Warm welcome to you.
Thank you.
Well, I think about Sabine I don't have to say so much. You probably all know her. She's one of the real shooting stars in design at the moment. She studied at the Design Academy in Eindhoven, worked extensively with many different companies around the world, like Celine, Stella McCartney, IKEA, Vitra, and many others. And we also made a project together that you can see here on the campus. It's an installation of our collection in the Vitra Schaudepot, and Sabine regrouped our museum's collection by color. So if you haven't seen this yet, I recommend you to go and see it during this week or later. It's quite a feast for the eye, and it's really an interesting perspective on design history to have this, you could say, random selection or confrontation of objects, because it's not chronological, it's not scientific, it's visual, but it's very strong. And I think this is also what color in design is about. It's visually touching, and I look forward to talking with you about this. Daniela Knapp from Audi is working in the color and trim department at Audi Design already for, I think, quite some years, quite a while. You have studied fashion design in Hamburg, and then you moved into the field of automotive design in the late 1990s. So I'm really looking forward to have your perspective on the role of color in the automotive world. Mm-hmm. To start the talk, we have gathered a few images just to give you a good start into the topic, and I would like to start with a few images that I have collected, and they may not come as a big surprise to you. As an art historian, I have to start with Goethe. This is a page of his 1810 book about color theory, so you see how Johann Wolfgang von Goethe explored the role and the perception and the effect of color through the lens of a natural scientist, but the theories of Goethe then also inspired a lot of modernist designers in the 19th and in the 20th century, and also still today. The next image, also not a surprise, it's spaced by Le Corbusier's the Villa La Roche in Paris. Le Corbusier was probably the architect in the 20th century who developed the most famous color palettes. He developed 2 color palettes, one before World War II and one after this. And it's still used a lot in interior design and other contexts. So, and the contrast, Werner Panton, one of the heroes here on the Vitra campus and at Vitra. What Panton introduced was a different take on color, and not what Le Corbusier called the polychromie architecturale, which is the effect built on contrast and on dialogue of colors, but it was, you could say, a monochromie architecturale. It's the same color shown in different shades in a similar space. So it's a different idea, a much more immersive and probably less distanced and less intellectual take on color. And last not least, Hella Jongerius, a color designer who worked a lot with Vitra on color palettes, on color strategies, on textile design. This is a series with 300 vases that she designed, and here she uses the vase as a canvas for color, for an exploration of color in space. So it's also a spatial structure that shows different effects of light on color, and the vase was the medium that Hella used to explore this. So last not least, this is the current view of the Schaudepot here on the campus, where the installation has been designed by Sabine. As I said, for us it was a dream for many years to look at our collection that we seem to know so well through a completely different lens. And it was really very touching to see this in real 1 year ago, because you would never confront certain objects which are confronted here just because they have the same color. So that's a wonderfully random reason to bring objects together, and you start to think about these objects differently. So this is my little intro, and now I would like to hand over to you, Sabine.
Oh, okay. Yes, hi. Yes, I also picked some images, mainly representing what fascinates me about color and how I use it in my work. I think this is a good representation of, so this is a picture of my house, or our house. It's our dining table, which has a finite shape to it, but when light hits it, it becomes much bigger than its own footprint. And I think that's super interesting when you can work with light as an activator of color. And also, yeah, the way that the colors flow into each other, and throughout the day, it's like the footprint of that object changes. So, yeah, for me, color and light, they kind of go hand in hand, and one and the other don't exist without each other. Also because color is experienced in a three-dimensional way. It's not something that's flat. The most frightening and annoying thing that I'm confronted with when I'm working with clients, or just people that are like, oh, give me a raw color, or like, can you make it in this color? And it's like, that makes no sense, because the pieces that I design, they have a three-dimensionality to them. So depending on what light surrounding it's in, it can have a completely different color than if it's in a different light surrounding. So yeah, that's sort of what this image is representing. And this is an image from the exhibition at the Schaudepot, which talks of that in the same way as well, that you can have color, but you only experience it depending on the context in the materiality of which it's used. I work a lot with glass and cast resins that have this ability to be really transparent or opaque, and there's depth to it also, depending how fat or thin the object is. So all those things have an influence on how you experience color. And the wonderful curators of the Design Museum, Nina and Susanna, put together this great presentation of all these designers like Werner Panton, Le Corbusier, Hella Kries, that had their own color theories. So I thought it would be interesting to also show my color theory, which I don't have any specific palettes that I work with, but this does showcase how color is used within my work, because it's always within a material. So a quick explanation of what you're seeing in this image is, in the very center you have a very transparent block, which is just pure resin without any additional color or pigments in it at all. And then when you go down, or I guess to the right in this image, it's adding incrementally a little bit of white pigment. And when you go to the right, it's incrementally adding more black pigment. And then to the front, it's adding more red pigment. And then on the other side, you see exactly the same set of samples, but they're matte instead of polished. So even that, the surface texture, also plays a role in how you experience and perceive color in a material.
Yeah. Wonderful. There's so much to talk about in a second. And you also shared this image.
Yeah, I took this last night here in Basel. I think this is also a very good representation of how I'm inspired by color in nature and light, because again, the two are indifferentiable. The colors that happen when in a sunset, but also the reflection of the water. I think this is a very clear representation of moments that I really gravitate towards and I want to kind of capture in a more permanent manner in my work.
So it's also, color is also a moment, no? It can pass.
Absolutely. And I think nature is like the best designer, but it's always fleeting moments. It's ephemeral moments. So it's about like capturing those in a longer way.
But somehow you often work with these degradations of color, which is also showing a transition already in one image, no? That
Yes.
It's somehow time in color.
True.
It's nice. It's so close to the table that you showed in the beginning.
Yeah,
this color palette.
I think it's also something that you can take, you can color block. I think color blocking is also really interesting. But you get an unexpected moment within two colors when you do a fade. And it also gives a more subtle transition where, especially if you're talking about designing spaces and you're walking through a space that has a gradient transition, then you almost don't notice that it's changing until you're on the other side. And I think it's a nice like balance of understanding what's happening or not.
Okay, Daniela, you shared this image as the first one.
Yeah, it's pretty funny what Sabine just explained, because I had exactly the same thinking. This is a painting hanging in our house on the north side, and our house is completely with glass around. So when in the west side the sun is going down, the color of this painting is changing. And this is exactly also my thinking behind that light and color are really working together. And I have to smile when I heard just these sentences. We are different industries, let's say, you from the artist side and me from the totally industry, but when you think just about the color, it's actually really these two things fitting together, color and light. And this is why I choose this painting, this picture.
Shall we move to the next one?
Yeah. So this is now more related to my work. First of all, it's one of my most favorite cars. And the second is the target of us as industrial designers and color designers is to create a car color, what is anywhere recognizable. Yeah? And this is actually what Aston Martin made with this color. It's really, it doesn't matter if you put it on another shape or you put it on even on another car, what is, not a nice stuff, but you will always recognize this color as an Aston Martin color. So this is actually really a target what we have as color designers in the automotive industry. There is, when you pass the streets and when you drive by yourself, when you are watching the different cars, there are 50 shades of gray on the street. Yeah? But this is also kind of gray, but it's really recognizable.
Do you recognize it as an Aston Martin? Yes? Okay. I have.
Okay.
So I'm color illiterate. But it seems to work, apparently. I just made a test. Next one?
Yeah, do I have a foot? Okay. Yeah, actually, I was also having a smile in my face when I saw your pictures written down with the Le Corbusier. I have this book at home, and it's always giving me an inspiration for how you can colors can combine together and what is fitting and not. And this is always a book where I'm sitting in the evening at home and having a look inside.
Thank you. Well, I think through this little introduction, we have a lot of topics to talk about. And I tried to group a few thematic sections. And I think the two poles of the discussion about color can be seen as one. There's a technical side to color. There's a lot of technology involved. a lot of know-how, also material science. And on the other hand, it's a very emotional, even physical thing. It's something that can really move you deeply. And I feel this when I talk with my kids about color, that they immediately react to something. And I love that play that kids do a lot with them when they meet. What is your favorite color? You know? And what is your favorite color, Sabine?
Ugh. I'm definitely not a kid because it's not my favorite question. It so depends on the context.
You can say rainbow also.
Oh, no, but it's not. Yeah, no, it really depends on the context because if we're talking about like clothing, my wardrobe is just black and white, maybe a touch of like sort of butter yellow for some reason, like my shoes. But I would never design a piece with that color. And I really stay away from black and white in my design work as well. Because when I'm creating work, I have the color is a tool to design with, and you can bring things to the forefront or create depth. Within the color transitions, you create kind of a tension, or also what you were saying, that you can create emotion. If you want a space to be really intense or really warm, or I think maybe I'm like nattering on now, but I think in my work I tend to prefer color combinations more, like not like one color, and that I gravitate to certain combinations, like a really deep Bordeaux red that transitions to like a warm yellow. Like for some reason that always just works really well, and so often I find myself going towards that color range, but then I also try to then challenge myself and go like, no, let's not do that. Like, let's try something else. So it's like I have a favorite color combination in that sense, but I also try to not use it.
But it's a very warm combination.
Yes, yeah.
It's the one you have on your table as well.
Yes, yeah.
So what strikes me there is that it also gives the whole space around a warm atmosphere, no? Because it reflects on the white walls.
And I think that's also the emotional thing. Like and with light design, for example, if you want a space to be transitional, then you put cold light in it. If you want a space to be somewhere where you stay for a long time, like a romantic restaurant, the lights are warm and dimmed. And I think it's the same. Like I want to be at my house. I'm not going to put like acid green in the table or like something super, super cold. It's nice to be in a space that has warm colors.
Do you often think about color psychology, or do you do this more intuitively?
No, I think more intuitively. It's based in knowledge, but it's not something I'm like constantly referring to.
Daniela, what is the role of color and psychology in the automotive industry? Is there a lot of study that you make before applying certain colors, or how do you approach this?
First of all, color is one of the most important subjects to buy a car. Yeah? But there is also, you have to think about which color you design for which car. Not each car can have all the same colors. I mean, a part of black, gray, and white, and silver. But when you make like these little color dots in the range of the color palette of the car, you have to think about, is it fitting exactly to this car, what you're designing? Yeah.
And what makes the color fit to a certain car?
A sports color can be like something ultra red, yeah, really strong, and also with a lot of pigments. And then there is, I mean, at Audi we have a big range of cars. We have sports cars, we have SUVs, we have now the electric world, and there is always, you cannot define it in detail. You have to see the shape of the car, you have to see the type of car, and then you can think about which color could be the special one, what is like the highlighting on the outside for the customer. I know it is just like to express the car outside, but the big colors what are always chosen is what I said, silver, gray, and black. But this, I have to say, is different to each country. So then we're coming back to this light topic in the beginning, because the customers in the US, in California, for example, are going even more to color than, for example, in Germany. Or Asia is also white and black the main thing, and the color is not well seen on the car. Yeah, there's only certain one. So this is always then this gap what you have to fill as a designer when the car is like sold worldwide, that you fit all the countries together.
And is this done through market studies, or is it
Yes.
experience and knowledge that you know that a certain color in a certain culture works or works not?
It's a mix of both. So of course it's for marketing style that they are more deep in these things than us, but it's also a knowledge by the time. But it's also what is the challenge. It's a bit changing, yeah, with the times. So US is pretty conservative, but you can see also in Germany or in Europe, for example, that in the last years it changed a bit. For example, silver was always the most popular color, and this changed in the last 10, 15 years to white. So this is like, it's not special, but at least it's a change.
Yeah. And are there colors that don't sell at all? If you want to make an unsellable car, what color would you do?
No, actually not, because in the car business, it takes time until a color is selling.
No.
The customer takes his time, and it's not as far as us as designers, let's say. Yeah, so
are you sometimes launching a color and you know that you have to wait 1 or 2 years, but
we see it from design point of view in a
Yeah.
different way, because we see the color as a trend coming, or you can see it in fashion already, or in the furniture industry. And the car, of course, is a long-term piece what you buy, and on top of it, we are starting 5, 6 years before the car gets launched with developing the color. So until it comes out on the market, then the customers may be used already to the color. There will be always like these kind of customers buying these loud colors, let's say, will be always few percentage, but it's always a good communication tool to present the car.
Okay.
What color car do you have yourself?
I have a company car, it's changing every half a year. There I have an A6, currently I have an A6, and it's in Daytona gray. And this is my favorite color. And then we come back to these Aston Martin, because Audi managed like more than 20 years ago with this color to create really a color what is recognizable outside. And now I can say from my point of view, everybody, all the other OEMs tried to copy this color, and it was never reachable. And this is for us an design icon at Audi, and I love this color. Yeah.
It's quite a special gray, no?
Yeah.
How would you describe it to the audience?
It's a special gray. Just short, roughly, how this color got created. It was like 22 years ago. We developed this color, and in those days there was a new pigment. It was called ceralic, and was totally new in the market. And Audi had like the guts, let's say, to bring this into the production, and it was super expensive in the beginning, and was funny. This color was not selling at all. It was very 2% or something. But we kept this color first as an RS edition, and then it went down to S and S line, that you can order it. And today we have more than 20%, and you cannot get it out. This is forever there.
Okay. Sabine, I think when talking about the car industry, there's a lot of technology involved in using colors. What about this aspect in your own work? Have you gathered certain know-how about color, about the effect of color? Are you working with experts? How are you doing this?
Yeah, for sure. So as I said, I work a lot with cast resin, which I collaborate with a really fantastic resin specialist workshop, STRS. And Yeah, we've been working together for like 12 years or so. And I think from the very first project, which was my first project and his first project as well, it's become like we're building on top of every past project. And then at a certain point, it was like, we need to actually make recipes for these colors, because if someone wants the same thing again, like, we need to be able to produce exactly the same thing again. And yeah, they have a very good system for that now. But even when there is a system, there are all these external factors that come into play, which are incredibly annoying, because you think you have like control of the process. But for example, the way that those little blocks were produced is you have an A component, and then you add color pigments, and then you add a B component, which is the catalyst, and then there is a chemical reaction. This all happens in a little mold, and then the liquids harden. And then you have a solid object, which then needs to be sanded, polished, until you have those little bricks. But those little bricks are like this big, so then you get whatever color you made. If you want to reproduce the same thing in something that's like this fat, you might think, oh, I need to multiply the color pigments by the volume that's increasing. But then you get exactly, like, completely something different, because the heat is playing a role in it. There's much more volume, so the whole thing gets way hotter, which burns the color. So if you're using, I don't know, if you want like something that's super blue, it gets too hot, and then you have like a yellow interior. Or you think that it's gonna stay the same transparency, even if you go bigger, but then because of how much material there is and the way that the light like hits the piece, it becomes super dark, even though you have like way less pigment in it. So there's a lot of external factors that come into play, which, yeah, just, it's a lot of like learning as you go, but then recording it. And so with the next project, you know, okay, we have to avoid that in any way possible. And it's the same with the glass as well. It's a process of layering different types of glass and a color treatment to it, but there are limitations that you have to work around. And I think it's very easy to create a color in the computer, and you're like, oh, let's make blue fade to yellow. And maybe in the computer that looks beautiful, but then if you put that in an actual material, you think that blue and yellow, in the middle is green then maybe. But in the actual material, it becomes this like disgusting brown for some reason. So there's no way to really know exactly what's going to happen until you do an actual prototype and work with the material itself.
What do you do with these pieces when it's completely going in the wrong direction? Yeah,
then it gets put on a shelf. And sometimes we reuse it for other things.
Is there a reason that you're so attracted to working with translucent materials, like glass or plexiglass, or?
Because that allows for an interaction with light, much more than if you have a closed-off material. Like, if you make a sculpture out of wood, it can be a beautiful sculpture, but it's not going to do a whole lot with the sun, or if it has an internal light source, for example. Whenever there's just a touch of translucency or complete transparency, then a completely static object can become very dynamic when light has a role to play in it. So yeah, I think that's definitely why.
There's also a lot of alchemy in the development, as you describe. It's a lot of try and error.
Yeah, and that's for me the funnest part of being a designer too. I don't like it when things are too easy. It's like, let's try and do something very difficult, and we have to like keep at it, and you know, it's not going to work straight away, but that if it was going to work straight away, then it's too easy. Then it's like, where's the fun in? There's no problem solving. There's no like scratching your head and putting, you know, other heads together. Like, how are we going to make this work? And when there is such like difficulty, then there is a much bigger reward at the end too when it does work.
Daniela, in the car industry as well, there's a lot of technicalities involved. I think you're focusing in your work on the exterior of cars.
Right.
How does that work in your field when you introduce new colors? Are you in touch with the producers of pigments or chemical companies that deliver the lacquers? How does that work practically?
Okay, there's two different groups. Actually, there is like the groups of companies developing really the pigments. They are also introducing the new pigments to us, yeah. And there's the three big color companies developing really exterior colors for the car design. So and
which are?
PBG, BASF, and Axalta.
Okay.
Yeah, and the pigment companies are directly in contact with these three big ones. So actually, my first persons are these three, PBG and so on. And yeah, then there is always, this is also this interesting work of a designer in the industries. You think like, oh, you made a great color and it's a new pigment and it works and everything is fine. But then there is still like the work of the pigment producers finding always something new in this chemical way, and this is really, really interesting.
And what role do color forecasts play in your industry? I know there's a lot around, but I'm always wondering who is really following this and who is actually making them. What is your take on this?
What do you mean exactly again?
Well, are you considering color forecasts, and you hear about a certain color that is predicted for being popular in 5 years, and then you take that into consideration, or is the development of new colors working differently?
It's more differently. Actually, I'm not working so much in this forecasting thing because, of course, you're checking every day, like what you said also before, with the nature, with going around in cities. When I'm on holiday in Barcelona, you're going in the shops and things like this. Then you see many, many things, and this gets, you get inspired by this. And sometimes I have an idea and thinking like, oh, this could be a cool exterior color. So it's not only just following the mainstream in color forecasting. So, and then it's also the coming back to this technology point, to which color is fitting which kind of effect. Yeah? Can it be a solid color? Can it be a matte color? Can it be like a color with a lot of flop? So let's say that it's giving a good shape to the car. This is something.
Wait, it's called flop?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's that? It's giving a good shape to the color, so it's a color characterization.
Yes, yes.
And what does it mean practically? Has it depth, or is it, what
it
happens?
Has a depth, or when you, this is the first thing when I receive, I mean, actually, I have to start a bit from the other side. When I work with these three big...
I want to know what flop is too.
When you work with these three big companies, I'm working not with computer in this case, because I cannot see a color in the computer. When you make so little detailing in one color, and the first I get receive like a small A5 panel, or a different variation. They create also something what I give them as an idea, so they go in different shades. The first thing what I do, I bend the thing, the panel, because when you have the car, when you look from the roof to down to the tires, there's always these kind of lines, and these lines are giving the color the effect. So when you watch from the side, from the window, and then you go really down, you can create a color what is going really from light to dark, or you can do it less. But this is really this shaping. So a Porsche has it easy. It has always this round shape. So this is something what makes it also like when you have a boxy car, makes it even more difficult to really create a color that it looks good on the car.
Because it has more flat surfaces.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. But what makes a color appropriate for this shape? Is it the density of
It's the
pigments?
density of the pigments inside. There are many different pigments today on the market. The classic one, what we started many years, was aluminium. The classic silver is with a lot of aluminium flakes. Today you can put crushed glass inside, crystals, and pearl. The pearl is is something what is pretty fine and gives almost no effect, but has, when the sun goes down on top of it, then you can really see these nice effect. But there are so many different possibilities to make a color pretty loud in effect, not the color itself, but loud in effect, or you can make it pretty smooth.
Okay.
Yeah. And at Audi, actually, we created some years a trend that we have this kind of solid effect, what is looking like a solid color when it's in our winter times in Germany, but when the sun goes really on top of it, then it creates these little pearl effects. So it's like a solid color with effect.
Okay.
This is...
Sabine, do you work with this degree of, let's say, or do you work on the level of the pigments and the different characterizations of color, or is it more mastering the material that you work with itself?
I think we work inside out to each other, because the application of color to a car is external, and with my work, the color is inside. So the fact that you have this like shimmer, for example, it's not something that I ever really think of. And it's always about how, the thickness or how fat the object is and what facets there are. And in general, I don't make many very organic shapes either. So these like smooth curves that a car has, like, are much more of a like block volume designer. So in that sense, we're kind of at the opposite spectrum of how we're working with color. But I do, maybe in a very slight way, the way that the surface is treated adds to how you view the color, because if there's many grades of sanding that you can do, that it becomes, the madder it is, the flatter the color is, the more polished it is, the more vibrant and alive it becomes too.
And I mean, you use very strong colors, as you say. Some other designers really work with very little color. Is there sometimes a moment where you think, now it's enough? More color would be exaggerated, or do you want to have as much color as possible?
I've never really thought of it like that. It's not, the color again, it serves to push a certain effect to the forefront. I'm not a huge fan of using a lot of different colors. It's always like a single kind of statement, so like I'm more like the Werner Pantone in your slides. Because then you can see what light does to a single color as well. And then maybe there is just one additional color just to give like a highlight, for example. Patterns, no go. That's too much going on.
You worked in the Barcelona pavilion by Mies van der Rohe, no? You made an installation, which I found interesting also in the context of color, because that pavilion gets its color from materials, from the marble, from the floors, from the glass shades. How was that for you? Was that difficult for you to work in that context, or was it like an inspiration to react to that context?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was like the scariest project I've ever embarked upon, because it's such a perfect scenario as is. It doesn't need my work in there at all. And it's also the first time that I had a kind of negative reaction as well to my work, because when we were setting up, the pavilion was closed for half a day. And then there was like a lot of angry tourists being like, what is this? Like, have you no respect? Get that stuff out of there. Like, let us go in. And I was like, I'm sorry, it's temporary, really. I'm sorry. But it was also in a way easy to define a framework to design within that project, because the pieces are very much led by the materiality and the color palette and the planes of the architecture, including water. Like, it was about like pulling at the existing planes, and that's the only additional color that was created was taken directly from the onyxes that are used in the project.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to make a decision. It was like, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, to me it was really a natural fit because in the pavilion there's this onyx marble wall where the light shines through, which is very close to your work with these translucent surfaces. I mean, when talking about inspirations, has this been an inspiration before you worked in that pavilion? Or did you never think about this kind of architecture?
Maybe subconsciously, but not so direct, because you know this was really working within the site, with the site. I think the essence of that type of design is very much what I like adhere to as well. It's about stripping away any kind of unnecessary things so that form and materiality are like the hero and there's no distraction of decorative elements.
Yeah.
What inspires you generally in the field of color? Is it artists, nature? What is it?
It's everything, I think.
Yeah.
It's just like absorbing things around you, and certain things stick and are like, wow, that's amazing, I want to work with that. It's not, there's no like rule to it. It's just whatever.
Everything. Yeah.
Yeah, everything and nothing. Yeah.
Absolutely everything.
It's the same for you?
The life is inspiration.
So Werner Panton, neither. It's something you relate to, but it's not something you know, I don't know, have seen in a certain phase in your work and then it has left traces.
I don't think I'm that analytical about it.
Well, you don't have to. It's just curiosity, because I think, I mean, it is you have such a specific approach to color, which to me is really, in the contemporary design world, is really recognizable and unique. So I'm wondering how this came about, where it started. Was there a starting point? Did you work on color already when you were at the Design Academy, or did it start later in the professional life?
I had like a very short failed snowboarding career when I was younger. But I spent I grew up in New Zealand, where I spent a lot of time in the mountains, and it's quite unique in New Zealand that the mountains are volcanoes, so you're generally above the clouds when you are on the snow slopes. And because I spent so many years in the snow, above the clouds, where you have very different perception of light and color, I think it made like a pretty big impression on me. And I definitely also remember being very like surprised or like fascinated about the fact that you can change your entire perception of space by like putting on different lenses. So if it's like a super sunny day, you put on reflective lenses. Or if it's really flat and it's difficult to see depth, then you put on like red lenses. So you can filter your own vision. And that's, you know, when I started studying design, I think I still grabbed from those experiences.
That's interesting. So you spend a lot of time with these shaded glasses in front of your eyes.
Yeah, a filtered vision of the world.
You can do this with your kids. You know? Daniela, I would like to go back to the role of color in public space a bit.
Yes.
I mean, when you use it for car exteriors, it's not only an element that decides about who is going to buy a car, but also how it is perceived in public space, in urban contexts. What role does that play in your color decisions?
Not so big role, because there is always a color range, and of course what I said before, the role in each country is important. For me, what I also trying to check, that the color range is fitting itself together a bit, yeah? So that there is not like, let's say, a strong yellow and then something like a acid green, let's say, yeah? And so that it's also at the end like a whole piece, the whole color range to fit into the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, by car colors, you design a big portion of public space, I would say.
Yes,
And
yeah.
it's also probably a security issue, whether you notice a car or not.
Yeah, but then it's the question why everybody buys it in black and gray.
Because in the in the fossil age, you were able to hear a car still, but today you're no longer hearing it.
No,
so
but this is not an issue in
It's not an
design.
issue.
No, not for us. No,
Yeah.
no, no. Important is that the car looks super good.
Okay. Okay.
But it's also like a functional thing, no? Like in really, really hot countries, it's like only white cars.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
mostly.
always find that really fascinating. It's like, yeah, there's...
In China, of course, they have what I said in the beginning. They have a lot of white cars, but funny-wise, in America, where it's extremely hot, also in some areas, then they still go for a red and a blue car. Of course, the black is then not a big issue. This is right. You're right. Yeah, this is true.
Do you also think about symbolic meanings of color? I mean, there's a whole symbolism in religion or in
Yes, yes, actually, but this gets already from the marketing side of view then a briefing, let's say, where we said, no, this color is no need for this car. But we have such a huge color range, and it's not only that we are designing for each car a new color. So there is like a color, what we think it fits really to some projects, and then it gets like spreaded. So it's not, it's also there, like coming back to the industry, it's also related to the place where it gets produced, the plant. So there we have like different plants in the world, and there's not only one car produced, so there's many different cars, and then you cannot have like 20 color lines there inside these factories, so you have to have it limited. There is no space, so then it's automatically that different cars are produced in the same factory have the same colors. So this is
that seems logical.
This is the
And,
industry part.
And what about the interior of a car and the use of color? I'm always wondering why are they mostly gray and white and black? I mean, isn't there a possibility to collaborate with someone like Sabine and just bring a bit of color in a car interior?
It's not true. We have not only black, beige, black, beige, and gray. Let's say, yeah. So.
Okay.
We have also in the
Very
last
exotic.
times, and especially about Audi exclusive, we have also a lot of color inside the car. So red and blue and cognac, but this is then more an individual thing and not for the mass production. Let's say, yeah, really for the customer outside who will buy the car at the dealership or really ordering over the configurator. This is something, this colored interior is something what has really to fit to the exterior color. And then you have to, let's say, we always say, take the customer by the hand and really help him to find the optimized
So
combination.
you protect them from what they want.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Sometimes, yes.
Okay, maybe you could still, you know.
Yeah, otherwise you have some wild combinations maybe outside.
Yeah, but people don't look in the inside, so I mean,
But
it's a
actually,
personal.
this is the interesting part. This is also our work in our whole department together, because I'm the part of being responsible for the exterior color, but we are 25 designers in color and trim. One is taking care of leather, the other one for the interior application colors, and the next one for the carpet. And at the end, it's one piece what we are designing, and it has to fit somehow together for the customer. Yeah.
Yeah. Sabine, is there a field where you would like to apply color that you haven't worked in so far? Like a dream project where you think this would need different take on color? I tried with a car interior, but...
But I have to say, I wouldn't necessarily give a car interior crazy color either. I think it's the same as with fashion. It's
not crazy color,
No,
but
but
nice
like
color.
not black or white. You mean?
Yeah.
I think if I'm shopping for a car, I would also want just like a dark interior, because it has also a sense of timelessness, where, you know, if you go for a strong color, then maybe you like it now, but maybe not later. I think within design that's different, because it's really like a statement, and I don't actually know why that's different, but yeah. Again, I don't know if I think that way. It's more about like there's many different fields that I would love to design in. Like I'd love to work with musicians, but then it would be very different if it was an installation that's going to be like the image of a cover of an album, as opposed to maybe what's happening on stage, where, you know, then you really need to grab attention. it depends on the context.
So you would like to work with musicians,
I think that would be
designing
fun,
like a stage experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if there's anyone of you involved in the music industry, we can also open the discussion up to the audience. Are there any questions to one of our participants about what we just discussed?
Don't be shy.
Yes?
We can hear you. It's
We
fine.
can- it's okay.
We can hear you.
In your daily life, for example, if you go to a new space where you have never been before, how much do you pay attention to the colors and how much do they maybe affect your mood or the way you feel in the space?
Thank you.
Good question. I think it's a combination of color and light again. There is certain like restaurants, if I go inside and it's so irritating that there's like really bad light quality, which makes every color in the space looks terrible and it's just like irritating. So yeah, I think inherently I'm quite aware and sensitive to it. So yeah, I guess, yeah, yes, much, a lot.
Do you feel that color is really having very strong effects on you? Like sometimes that's also, that you feel that is also beyond control, that there is this direct...
Then I'm like, I need to leave.
Or do you have a professional eye where you just analyze and...
I think it's the same as with everyone working within a certain field. You're like, your vision is contaminated by your profession as well. Yeah.
More questions? Yes.
Another question for Sabine. Are you working, or do you have a preferred color wheel you're working with or you're referring to? Like a Cooper's Sun or other like very classic systems?
Because the way that most of my work is produced, the resin and the glass, there is no like color reference for producing it. So it's really like manual mixing. And in that sense, I guess not, because it's just about like colors that we've tried and used, and then that is the reference, like what has been done before and what we then do now and in the future. So you build like your own library and refer back to that, because anything else doesn't make sense until you try to match that in the way that the production works.
I've seen that you organize the red columns, for example. They were quite organized like an NCS or like a Cooper's Sun, for example. Like you have the basic one and then you go with the gradation to mix it with white and black and so on.
No, I know what you mean. But that specific image was also to show exactly like what happens when you create structure to showing what color does within a material. So within that project, there is that system, or project within that like thing, there is that system. But with the individual objects, it's much more just what we know we can do with the pigments, and there's not too much more theory behind it than that.
So you're really developing color also out of a certain material that you work
Yeah,
with.
because that's the only reference. You can apply whatever other system there is, but it doesn't really translate.
Yeah. I had an interesting discussion with someone from Nike this week, and he explained me the transition from cotton fabrics to nylon fabrics in the 1970s, which was linked to transmission of sports in TV, because the colors were looking much brighter on nylon fabrics on TV transmissions than the old-fashioned cotton fabric. So I found that super interesting, that this has really fostered the change towards synthetic fibers because of media.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering what virtual reality will do. On the one hand, you can bring color directly to your retina. On the other hand, it's much less present, I think. What do you think about this? Is that something that you're interested in, to explore digital tools?
Yes and no. I think I'm very fascinated by tactile experiences, and I would venture into the digital, or am like interested in the digital when it can really offer something that you cannot get from a tactile experience. But I think it's difficult to define what that is, other than having a completely artificial space that surrounds you without having to physically create it. That's like great, because then you don't need to use resources to build a massive installation to feel that same way. But I think it needs to be used for exactly what it can do, other than the physical.
So it's more a tool than a purpose per se.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about good.
I would like to ask the Audi designer. Sorry, I missed your name.
Daniela.
Yes. So I see color as a form of communication, as I think that we all do. And this is just a teasing question, because I wonder if in Audi, because you are dealing with new technologies and really interacting with the way that the color is produced and then the car is designed with that color. For instance, I would love to have one day a white car, the other day a blue car, or a car changing according to my emotions on that day. I'm sure that this is going to be feasible. Are you already thinking about that?
I have,
That's great.
I have to say this will be not visible. No, there are so many, I'm so loud? No. There's so many technology behind, because we are not like creating like one piece, sondern there are like thousands of cars going out of the production, and there is so many circumstances around of quality, when you have an accident, the repairable of the color, and I know this is always a dream of somebody changing the color like your Nike shoes or something, but this is really difficult.
You can't do that at home, actually, with the light, only the
Yes.
light. The car is another
But the
level.
car will be
Just
difficult.
a very quick question to Sabine. I'm wondering, when you start designing an object, because of course there is this relation between the shape and the color and the light, you start by choosing the form that you want to achieve, or you start by experimenting with the light and the color? Which follows what? It's the light, the color, the shape?
It's normally the material and a certain effect within that material, and then the form and color have to make that effect work the best as possible.
So you start with the material.
Yeah. Or a production process. So it's like, what can I do with this production process and this material? Yeah, but it's definitely not a sketch in any case, yeah.
Okay.
We had another question here.
My name is Lisa Starchuk. I'm a personal stylist, and my question would be to Sabine, because I noticed that you said that you are wearing only white and black clothes mostly, and I have the same situation with many of my, I would say, established creative or very artistic clients. And I always wonder what caused this, because you have very bright home and you work from home, or you like how your, I don't know, skin tone appears in this color. What's the behind the scenes? Have you ever thought about this?
I honestly think it's the same, a little bit the same reason why I also don't like to cook. Because you're so confronted with color all day long, and confronted with decision making. So like when I get home in the evening, I'm like, I don't want to make another decision about like food. And I think when I get dressed in the morning, it's like, I don't want to make a decision about color. It's like everything that's in my wardrobe somehow goes together, because the palette is very like, you know, it will work together. And it's timeless too. I'm not like a big fan of going shopping a lot. So it's basically just boring and safe, but with like accents of, you know, like good sunglasses or a great coat, but the base is just the one less decision as well, yeah.
But do you have very colorful home or not?
I do actually. But that's also a result of the way that we've like accumulated the pieces in our house. It's our friends' work. So I've either like traded my own work with friends or commissioned other friends, and they make colorful work. And then it's nice to be surrounded by like your friends' work. I will say that we had a very bright pink sofa for a long time. And that kind of, I also have to admit that this is a very naive thing that happened, and I probably shouldn't say it because I'll come off unprofessional, but when we picked the fabric for that sofa, it was on a swatch like this big. And I thought it was going to be white and red, speckled, but on a big scale, that's pink. And I loved it, you know, it like was really great, but then as we got more and more other colors in the house, at a certain moment it was like, okay, it's a bit too much now, like we need to like get a little bit of a base going on, like a neutral base back. So we recently, the beauty of that sofa is that you can just zip the cover off and like zip on another cover, so now it's like a beigey color, which then makes the other colors pop again instead of being one big circus. So it is a balance, yeah, that you sometimes have to regain when it gets out of control.
Thank you so much.
This is actually happening in the car design, yeah? When you make such a small piece and then you have, when you are getting, you think close to the decision, and then you decide, okay, send me 1 kilo of the paint, and then you paint a big surface, and then you are like, oh, okay, good. Maybe I have to work again. Yeah, it's really the same.
Yeah.
One last question.
Yes, just a very quick question to Daniela, because we already now spoke briefly about virtual reality, but what we're already living with today, and which I just guess might be important for you, is that a lot of us, when we see a car nowadays, we first see it on our screens. So how do you consider how a color photographs, especially with like changing technology in phone photography, where the colors change drastically depending on what the phone company decides to do with the color that the camera actually sees. So do you like try each generation of mobile phones from different brands, which I'm not going to mention, to see what the colors look like when photographed with those, and how they're going to, what cars are going to look like on social media and crappy photography?
The photo is not the problem. This is getting quite well. The point is, when we started before with the virtual reality, when you develop a color and you are not at the point where you say, okay, that's it, it's perfect, and you make an image on the computer. There we are already inside Audi quite good, but maybe I'm too old for it. I'm pretty critical with these virtual part showing colors, because a color is for me a piece you need to have a panel in the hand, especially also with these detailing with the pigments and everything, what makes a color so different. Yeah? You can have the same base tone and you put in one like a different pigment and another one a stronger pigment, you have 2 different colors. Yeah? Even when you talk from a green or a red or whatever. But and this you cannot show on a computer or on a picture or anything. You have to have a piece in the hand. Yeah, so this is why I'm pretty critical with these virtual stuff. I have always this discussion with my suppliers that they would like to get more into this virtual world and to say like, okay, like this we can save some loops in development, because sometimes until we have the final color, maybe I received 6 times a loop of different panels. That can take from 3 months to 1 year to develop a color. And then they think like in virtual, okay, to get close to what I have in my head, that they send me an image. But I'm pretty critical in this, I have to say. I need a piece in my hand.
I think it's the same like in printing as well. When you, I mean, we could have another discussion for a whole evening about color in print, on different papers and so on. And I think it really depends on what you hold in your hands.
And actually, it's already there. We cannot avoid it. When we launch a car, of course, we have to create these pictures for the configurator or for the press pictures, and it's already a pretty hard job with many people to set the color in digital for the press pictures that it's really fitting to the original. So this is a hard work.
Well, thank you, Daniela and
Thank you.
Sabine. I think we should come to the end. I think it was super interesting to talk with you about perspectives from really two realms of design, the automotive world and the world of interiors, of objects, of snowboarding. And we learned I learned what flop is. I have to study that further. That sounded really interesting. I hope you enjoyed the talk. You can talk to us afterwards downstairs. There's some drinks and some music in front of the Audi Pavilion. I thank you very much for coming. If you haven't seen the Schaudepot exhibition, please come and see it. It's open every day from 10 to 6 a.m. It's really worth going there. And sorry, from?
10 to 6 a.m. Just over.
PM, sorry. PM, it's not that long. Thanks for joining us, and wish you a very good continuation of the Art Basel Design Miami week, and come and see us again. Thank you very much.